how do you plan together? How do you make, your agreements? All of that. How do you do check-ins? There's the logistics, but then there's the self-work. Like we can't avoid that. We can't, especially if we have attachment wounding, which most of us do, on some level. And there are things that are going to come up. And for me, anyway, it's impossible to be non-monogamous and not be too like, maybe it's impossible for me to feel like a healthy non-monogamous person and not be doing my own self-work. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Queer Relationships, Queer Joy. I'm one of your hosts, Melissa DeSegurant.
Hey, and I'm Keely C. Helmick. Welcome, everyone.
Glad to have you. We're not going to forget introductions today.
No, not like we did last time where at the ending, like the last 5 minutes, we're like, oh, hey, by the way.
That's what we get for me starting. I think you're just really good, Keely, at knowing all the little components. And I'm like, yeah, I got this.
My Virgo brain. I have little, I always think in little chunks and think ahead.
Is that what was happening? I was taking a Leo spotlight moment and then forgot all of the things that we do on our podcast.
That's exactly what happened. My Virgo came charging in and your Leo was like, hey.
Love it.
Well, why don't you introduce yourself first? Let's shift it.
Start there. Sure. So I'm Melissa. I'm a white, able-bodied person. I'm bisexual, polyamorous, solo poly, gender queer, gender fluid.
Of Connective Therapy Collective. I am a white, gender fluid, non-binary, femme, able-bodied, solo person, practicing non-monogamy while dating, and just hanging out and enjoying life. And trying not. So for those, I think most people are listeners, but for anyone who watches the YouTube video, I'm going to have to try so hard. So I got a new haircut and it's so hard not to be looking at myself and adjusting my hair. I know, because it's I don't know how to describe it. I mean, people would say, it's really important to be aware of how we talk about queer codedness, but it's a very queer coded haircut. And so a couple things.
I'm not one to talk. I'm rocking the side cut that was popular several years ago.
Yeah, you just try it out. Yeah. My oldest child, the first thing she said was, "Oh, Mom, you don't look straight anymore." I'm like, okay.
How did that hit?
It was interesting. I'm having this mix of gender euphoria and also this tinge of annoyance. And I don't even know if annoyance is the right word. It's more like, oh my gosh. What I really notice is that in being back in the dating world, really being so conscientious of how I perceive what I think people will be attracted to. Going off of one of our last episodes of Radical Self-Love, and I'm actually reading The Body Is Not an Apology, is really reconciling with that of this idea that this is a very different haircut than I've ever had. And along with gender, we were talking about gender. I mean, we talk about gender. I mean, include gender and sexuality all the time in this, and talking about gender and clothing and all of those pieces of how people perceive us on the outside. It's so fascinating and it's a little scary and weird and uncomfortable.
What it suits you.
Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. So what else? So our topic today is polyamory and non-monogamy. And I want to check in though. I just did a little emotional dump.
Want to do some emotional stuff?
Well, is there anything that you feel like listeners would want? Do we have any updates? Any updates from you?
Yeah. I'm yeah. Am I judging my own update before I say it? Maybe. I don't know. I had a really chill weekend. I did follow up on some of the cleaning I had talked about in our last episode. I'm very aligned with our lunar calendar and cycle. So we're going into a new moon and a new lunar year. So I've done there's just a lot of clearing that needs to happen. And right now it's physical clearing of just junk, extra stuff. I was talking to a friend the other night about clearing things, and she had a really tough year last year, as did I. I was like, yeah, there's still a couple bags in my trunk. I think it's my ex's stuff. And she knew my ex and was like, it's pretty safe to say you can get rid of that now. So I'm like, yeah, maybe I need to do
Oh,
that.
dang. Yeah. Like
So
how
yeah,
symbolic, but actual.
right. Like we're clearing right now. So it feels really good and making space for new, but also still in this place where I don't know that it feels like I'm supposed to be dating super actively right now. I feel relatively open to it, but I'm just a person who goes largely off of intuition. And for me, when I'm ready for the right connection, I don't mean to say this a flippant way, but I don't usually have to work really, really hard. Like if I'm finding myself really struggling at the dating thing and trying to get out there, like I'm pushing against something that's like not supposed to happen right now.
Oh, yeah.
If that
Yeah.
makes sense. It's not like, well, I don't have to work hard. It's more like when it's meant to be, it happens
It'll happen.
organically
Yeah.
and I don't have to force it. So I think I'm in a place where I'm really not forcing that and realizing there's a lot of rebuilding in my own life that still needs to happen.
Yeah, that's a great recognition of that. I have this theory, and I don't know, y'all, please write in or email us, tell us what you think. I have this theory that things are kind of on hold right now and not as many people are out dating. I'm guessing by like April, the dating apps and the dating scene is going to start hopping. Like everyone's getting prepared for the summer. And I think people are really just laying low. And like how many people are sick right now and not even wanting, like it's whether you're monogamous or non-monogamous, in the dating situation right now, it's like even awkward to like touch. Like if you don't know this person, I mean, when like the joke is like by the third date, my roommate was talking like, yeah, usually by the third date I put out. And like now it's like third date, have you even kissed the person? Who
Well, and
knows?
specifically talking, like you said, about non-monogamy, there's such a bigger bubble. Like there's such a chain. I've had clients recently talking about the original L word and Alice's Web, and
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like
yeah. Oh
every
yeah, that's
time
right.
like their partner has a new partner, they're like, like what about your risk profile and who do you live with and who do you see? And there's
Yeah.
just so much to consider with COVID and non-monogamy.
There really is, and I think that and in saying that, knowing that a lot of folks who practice non-monogamy or are polyamorous did choose monogamy at the beginning of this,
Sure.
and I think there's also a transition of like, okay, this isn't like going away. So how do we navigate people wanting to be non-monogamous or polyamorous again and figuring out how to navigate that within the context of COVID and all of these pieces.
Yeah. And then I got to give a shout out to the people who maybe entered COVID in monogamous relationships that, like mine, did not last much longer. That's the beginning. I'm like, how do I say that nicely? That exploded when COVID happened. Um,
I had one that
necessarily
exploded too,
so.
don't worry.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's this pressure cooker that
Yeah.
we were put into, and in some ways just exacerbated things that would have maybe taken another decade to like come to the surface. But I do know that there's a lot of folks out there that are considering non-monogamy for the very first time right now.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
starting the skill set, and then like we said, certainly there's the COVID piece too that can impact how people feel comfortable doing that. But yeah, there's a lot of movement in this direction right now.
Hey everyone, Cardinal the Polyamorous Raccoon here, and I found something for you in the dumpster out back. Just kidding, I made it with Keely and Melissa. It's a worksheet that helps you determine your values while dating during COVID times and otherwise. Complete it on your own or with a friend or three. Download it for free by clicking the worksheet link in the show notes. Okay, back to the show.
Well, I have to just put in that we got to put the plug in it for a second. The plug in about our non-monogamy workshop and the 8-week closed group we're going to do because based on my theory, now who knows if it's true or not, but yeah, we set that just exactly for those folks who want to start learning skills and practicing and being in an environment where it's supported, because so often I hear people talk about are non-monogamous and have been non-monogamous for years, but still don't have that support.
Right.
and don't have, like, I was talking to a friend and she's non-monogamous, and actually one of her other partners, she lives with both partners, one she's married to. This dynamic has been there. Well, the person just moved in, but this dynamic's been around for a while. And they're like, well, yeah, I want to meet community, but just because someone else is polyamorous doesn't mean we're going to get along.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
because that one piece. And it's the same as like we all experience that as queer people. It's like, oh, just because there's that one other queer person in your class or that one other queer person
Yeah.
in whatever organization doesn't mean we're all going to get along with that
Right.
together. So that's the other opportunity we're hoping for, and actually starting maybe a bi-weekly or a monthly drop-in group.
Mhm. Yeah, I think, like you said, the community piece, and we've been hitting on that more in the most recent episodes. And it is so important. And especially being new. I mean, either way, whether you're new, like you said, or been doing this for a long time. But what I found recently is when you're looking for some resources and like, oh, I know one friend who's tried non-monogamy. Usually
Yeah.
that one friend has not, that relationship probably is over. Like
Right.
their example is probably something painful and that looks dramatic and that looks scary, maybe not. Like you're really lucky if not. I mean, if somebody had asked me and I was the only spokesperson from non-monogamy while I'm going through my divorce, like people could make interpretations about that. I
Sure.
think it's good to focus on what's working. I will also put out there the idea that just because a relationship ends doesn't mean that relationship didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, part of that non-monogamy or just the continual, whether monogamous or non-monogamous, is getting out of this headspace of the basis of a relationship working out is based on the amount of time, or
Right.
like the only relationships that work out are the ones where it lasts 40, 50, 60 years and then people die. Like that's not the equation of a relationship working out. And in fact, I wonder if we can even get rid of like a relationship, quote unquote, working out. What
Mhm.
if we just talk about relationships? It makes me think of that little, like in childhood, we talk about different friendships dying and relationships changing and the changing of the seasons. What if our dialogue was just, we didn't use these terms of valuation? Like there's value based on length or how we evaluate a relationship.
Right. Or even a success versus a failure versus,
Yeah.
yeah.
When I think about when people are coming to us or just talking in general about non-monogamy or polyamory, do you have a working definition that you like to use to differentiate? Again, these are terms that people can have their own definitions, but do you have a working definition that you like to use for non-monogamy and working definition for polyamory?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think I do like to start with some rough definition, especially for folks in session who have like never encountered these terms before. But with any label, ask somebody what it means to them. I guess the way I conceptualize it is non-monogamy is maybe the broader term, the broader umbrella term, in that it is, I mean, kind of, I guess it's kind of self explanatory. It's a connection that is not monogamous, so there's not a dependence on one person for sexual romantic needs, but that may or may not involve emotional connection or different levels of emotional connection. And that's where I think the differentiation comes in with polyamory. Polyamory specifically being there is love available, or there is deep emotional connection and
Yeah.
attachment to multiple people.
I noticed that people will sometimes use polyamory as an identifier. Like when we are opening up and talking about ourselves, some people identify as polyamorous, some people don't. Again, obviously people get to identify how they want to identify, and we're not here to question or judge. Be like, you need to tell me exactly how many relationships you're in right now. Or wait, even better, you need to tell me who you're having sex with, how many people you're having sex with, and how much you like that person.
Yeah, letting go of some of that control. But you do bring a good point. For some people, this is a relationship style that they are
Yeah.
choosing. And for some people, it is like a identifier, a personal identifier. And it's interesting. I think that's probably fluid for some folks over the span of their life. I would say in this moment right now, I see myself, and I've introduced myself this way on the podcast as a polyamorous person.
Mhm.
I am just a person who can fall in love with more than one person. That is very accessible for me.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting is I could potentially be a polyamorous person in a monogamous relationship.
Totally.
You know,
Yeah.
especially me, like, because here's how we're defining monogamy: that you like you're exclusive with sex and romance,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Like it's all based on sex and romance. So I could still be someone who's in love with many people and only having sex and building a romantic partnership with one. Like,
Isn't that the whole point of what we're even talking about with community? Like,
yeah.
isn't, I mean, when we use the word polyamorous, aren't we all as humans polyamorous?
I mean, maybe in like our best version, right? Not all this like,
I,
yeah.
I mean, I will always love more than one human because I have 2 kids.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then all my friends and the family that I love. And so it's interesting when we deconstruct that. I mean, that's what's so interesting about language as we
Yeah.
deconstruct it. I think you and I could definitely go down a full, dive into this, but I do want to make sure we talk more about dynamics of non-monogamy and polyamory as well. But I think the other piece is I do just want to say that with polyamory, this idea of fluidity and like that can change throughout our lifetime.
Yeah.
The person who wrote Ethical Slut, she very openly in her book and in her trainings always talks about had so many different relationships, different sexual partners, very kinky. Janet Hardy, and she now is in a monogamous relationship,
Mhm. Mhm.
and like, and obviously that's okay.
Yeah, it's valid. Very valid.
That
Yeah.
doesn't make her any less non-monogamous or any less poly. Just like, just when someone's monogamous, if they're bisexual or pansexual, if they're in a monogamous relationship, they're still just as bisexual.
Hey, it's Cardinal, your non-binary pal. The first time I ever saw breast forms and binders was at As You Like It in Eugene. They have more than sex toys. They also have gender-affirming gear for all flavors of trans, as well as books on gender and sexuality. Find them online at asyouLikeItShop.com and use code CTCTherapy, all one word, at checkout for 10% off. That's CTC Therapy at asyouLikeItShop.com. Okay, back to the show.
So I wonder, Melissa, I think about and thinking about this workshop, thinking about these groups we're running, and just thinking about people in general. What do we tell people, or can we have a discussion around this idea of when people are trying to figure out
Yeah.
if they should try non-monogamy,
Right.
if
Right.
they should be non-monogamous in an already established monogamous relationship?
Yeah. I think, oh gosh, there's so many things. There's so many things. It's more than just one episode. It's got to be, but
It will be.
I was like, I talk about it every time anyway. So whether or not you want it, you're all getting it. No, I think about it. There's 2 different pieces of it. There's the logistics of the relationship
Yeah.
you're in now, what needs to be worked on in that relationship, regardless of the like formation of it or what kind of structure you're in. That's where all the logistics come in. Like, okay, how do you plan together? How do you make, your agreements? All of that. How do you do check-ins? There's the logistics, but then there's the self-work. Like we can't avoid that. We can't, especially if we have attachment wounding, which most of us do, on some level. And there are things that are going to come up. And for me, anyway, it's impossible to be non-monogamous and not be too like, maybe it's impossible for me to feel like a healthy non-monogamous person and not be doing my own self-work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that you can fall into this rhythm when you are in monogamy, long-term monogamy. There is that really easy possibility to just fall into rhythm and not to be doing continued self-work,
Right.
or just like taking things for granted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I think about this, and this is part of the screening you and I have been talking about doing, is checking in with people. Like, do they really want to try non-monogamy? Do they really want to be polyamorous, or do they feel like they are going to lose this relationship if they don't try it?
Yeah.
To me, that's one of the biggest things, is really checking in before venturing into this, because there's a difference. There are just some people that are very monogamous minded, and that's okay. And we're not here to convert anyone. And I say that all the time in session when I have two people coming in, if they're looking to try out non-monogamy or they want to start that lifestyle or adjusting to that. It's like,
Mhm.
I'm not here to convert somebody. So if one partner wants it and one partner doesn't,
Yeah.
then we sit with that.
Yeah.
But aside from that, there are some markers that I think of when people are trying. I don't say it quite so bluntly in a session, but I do like to reflect on this idea of sometimes, even subconsciously, people who are one person in a relationship may be looking to start non-monogamy, but what they don't realize is they're just looking to have somebody else to help them get out of the relationship because
Yeah.
they don't want to be in that relationship anymore, or
Yeah.
what
Maybe
we
if they're looking for reasons to get,
yeah, yeah. Like
or
we're
proof that they can get out of the relationship and still be
or that
okay.
they don't want to be alone.
Right.
They don't want to, we used to call this, I don't know if people still use this term, but like serial monogamous, where it's just like a lot of us just say that's pretty non-monogamous nowadays. Like we don't use the term serial not monogamy. We're like, oh, you mean you found somebody that you could jump into in another relationship before you got out of your other one? That sounds pretty non-monogamous to me. And that's okay. And again, I'm not here to shame that.
Mhm.
But it's an awareness of, if that's what you're looking to do, there's a lot of hard work being done that is not, maybe not as helpful at this time.
Yeah. What you're talking about relates to a concept that Jessica Furr talks about in Polysecure, the why. She talks about
Yeah.
coaching, clients to figure out what is your why. Number one, so you can be clear about why. Like that's a good idea to like be intentional. But the other thing is when it gets difficult, and it will, as do
Yeah.
monogamous relationships, so will non-monogamous relationships. And we don't have a framework. We don't have the community necessarily, built up if we're just starting into this, this kind of a relationship structure. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of reasons it could be difficult, but being able to go back to your why. And I will say firsthand, that got me through so much when I was first opening up my marriage, because that was really difficult for me. And there's just a different pace at which like I want sexual attention from other people, and my ex did. And so I had to sit with a lot of jealousy and a lot of my stuff like right away.
Yeah.
And my why was like so valuable for me. And I can't remember verbatim exactly what it was, but at that point it came down to something around, I don't want myself or my ex to ever feel any shame about a sexual impulse. Like I'm doing away with shame about sexuality. And that was my why. And so therefore, yeah, when things were really hard, okay, but this is okay. This is something that he doesn't have to feel ashamed about.
Oh, yeah. So I I fully admit that is on my list. It will be read before we do our workshop, and I've read plenty of other books around non-monogamy, but
I actually recommend it to monogamous people too, even if I haven't finished the whole book. I
okay.
know that the last couple chapters are a little bit more into the relationship structure.
Okay.
But again, because what we said, I think that still could be useful for everyone. But the first three
Yeah.
chapters are just one of the best overviews of attachment that I've heard in a while. I heard because I did audiobook, and she does
it.
a great job. Yeah, she does a great job of talking about the attachment styles across the lifetime. So what this could look like in your adult relationships and questions you might be asking yourself if you are an anxiously attached, or if you're, all these different things.
Yeah.
And then really talks about secure attachment, which is one of the things that I've been really focusing on in my sessions with clients recently. How do we create secure attachment so that we can go out and explore the world and explore other partners and still be connected over space and time?
When we look at polyamory and non-monogamy as a broader picture of not just romantic and sexual partners, which we will be focusing on that, but in the light of the secure attachment piece, it's such a great example when we think about little kids and the whole idea of it's where attachment came from, where you drop off the kiddo, and secure attachment is the kiddo's like, okay, bye parent, have fun. And they like go play with all their little friends. And that's secure attachment. And so in a poly dynamic, you're like, oh, bye. bye, have fun on your date. I'm going to go
Yeah.
play with my other friends, my other sex partners, whatever.
Yeah.
And that provides lots of opportunities for growth and conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And, to normalize it too for people who maybe hear that and are like, ah, like for me, I'm like this, when I think about my partner and like my metamor, I'm like, oh my God, I think they're going to move in. Like, I'm the compersion thing. Right. And that may not be how everyone feels in the beginning when they have not built these frameworks, but even remembering that like with secure attachment, those parent figures were people who those needs were met most of the time, and then when there is a
Yeah.
separation, there is, I can't remember the terminology she uses, but something like there's appropriate distress. So there may be a like, oh gosh, mom's leaving. Oh, look, toys, fun. Okay, I can do that.
Oh,
right?
I found my shiny distraction.
Yeah. And that's, hopping over to the logistics side of things. That is one of the tools that I talk to people about is being intentional about your transitions. It's like energetic
Yes.
whiplash to go from one partner to the next partner. Maybe I should speak for myself. I'm an empath. I take in people's energy real easily and strongly. And it's a lot to go from one person that I'm deeply in love with to someone else I'm deeply in love with a very different energy and like no time to transition.
Yeah.
So that's one of those tools, how can you transition? And again, this is a tool that even monogamous people can use, and you can use it outside of relationships. Like how many of you do intentional transitioning after work before you go home to
Yes.
your family?
Well, you're taking accountability for your own energy. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm thinking about a client that I'm working with, and one of the things I had them start doing, or they requested of their partner, is just a basic shower, like shower and change clothes after being with another person.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking even back to, does she talk about any strategies? I feel like a lot of people ask, so the strategy of the transition or thinking about the transition. I think about people asking a lot about how to set up agreements and how to talk about agreements and expectations. And again, no, stating before we start talking about it that this is not a concrete thing that, oh, we talk about it once at the beginning of non-monogamy discussions, and then it's a living document.
Yeah.
It's constantly updating, changing, rewording,
And when you're
talking
doing
about.
check-ins, that's what you're checking in about.
Yeah.
Yeah, she probably does. And that's probably the part that I haven't gotten to yet. So this
well,
week,
to be
this week's
continued.
episode, I will know because I will finish that book this week. But what I tend to start people off with is even making a list, maybe even individually or together. What kinds of things do you imagine you would want agreements about?
Yeah,
Because it's different for everybody. Some people
true.
want agreements about like, well, do you go to other people's medical appointments? If a partner's in need and needs a ride to the hospital, do you drop, your spouse and on their date and go and attend to them? Like that might be an agreement for some folks and for others it may not. They're like, no, of course, go do your thing. That's fine. Agreements around sex, agreements around protected or unprotected sex,
Yeah.
there's so many agreements even about information sharing and how much you want to know or don't want to know.
Yeah, and we will be I wish I could say we had it on our website right now, but we don't. But before our workshop on the 25th, we are starting to piece together some samples of agreements. And I think the thing with even these samples of agreements that you can find online and maybe in the book, I know that Shrimp Teeth, if y'all are familiar with, their online, and they focus on E&M and ethical non-monogamy, and they have some great worksheets that I have not seen yet. So I think that it's good for people to have guidance, and it's also important for people to have that creative, like they're thinking about what they want and not just basing the agreements on what someone else created.
Right. As you just said that, now I'm like in the past hitting myself for my definition that I don't know what I said now about non-monogamy, but the word that just jumped out at me was like in the E&M, the ethical part. Like that's really
Yes.
important. Like we're either talking about ethical non-monogamy or consensual non-monogamy. That's very different than like other not ethical non-monogamy called cheating, for example.
It's well, and I was describing that to somebody. I was like, just the other day, I was talking about a former partner, and we had started off non-monogamous dating, and then we became monogamous at some point. And then all of a sudden I found out about them being with somebody else. And I was like, Okay, so unethical non-monogamy.
Right. Yeah.
Like the word is always, we use the word cheating. There's so in our culture, not you and I necessarily, but in our culture, the word cheating is thrown around so much. And I really like the reclamation of unethical non-monogamy because it really starts reshaping the framework around it. And to be really clear that folks can be non-monogamous and still lie. And that's what cheating is. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's all this, like, we wrap this up around someone having sex with someone else, someone doing this and that and the other with somebody else. But at the end of the day, whether you're monogamous or non-monogamous, we don't own anybody else.
Mhm.
I don't get to tell my partner what to do. My
Mm.
partners don't get to tell me what I get to do. It's really about having all of these pieces to where we talk about it. And then the ethical part of it is that we're telling the truth.
Right. Right. Yeah. And the agreements are all about making sure there's consent, because that's the way that Jessica Tern
Yes.
puts it, is that all parties are aware of and consenting to all of the relationships that are happening.
Yeah. And I
That's
think really clearly, and we've talked about this before, and this will come up again and again and again when we're talking about consent and ethical non-monogamy. Another piece that's fascinating around agreements is how much we talk about other people
mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
how much we share.
Yeah. And
And
even whether it's like a term to throw out there for people who may not know all the terminology, kitchen table, if it's a kitchen table dynamic
yeah, yep.
versus like a don't ask me, don't tell
Don't
me.
ask, don't tell. I know.
Yeah. I'm like, we need a different way to say that.
Look at our faces, like both of us are like,
Sucks.
"Ugh." Well, yeah, because hello, we're a queer podcast, we're queer
No, I'm like,
folks, and we're like, don't ask, don't tell.
listeners, do you
Literally,
have any ideas? Like, what's the non-kitchen table version of, like, where I don't really want to know details about your partners? I am aware that you have other partners, but
yeah.
I don't want to be asked about who I'm seeing, and I don't want to what can we come to a consensus about a
Yeah.
different terminology for
Let's
that?
get a different terminology because I don't want to have flashbacks of the
No.
90s and early 2000s.
I couldn't
And
even say it without making a face.
on new terminology, please write us in to figure out. So in this, going back to this agreements and how much we talk, it's so fascinating to me also because, again, this applies to all communities, but we're in the context of our queerness and being in the queer community.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad, not bad, but it's hard enough as therapists that we hear all this shit and we hold all of this.
Yeah.
And then our community is so small comparatively. And I find all of a sudden I'll be like dating somebody or like even just casual sexual partner. And then I'm like, wait, what? Who you connect? Wait, what? Who? Huh? And then I'm like, wait, you're telling that person what?
Right.
And
Right.
so it's interesting to me as I'm checking with myself because I'm not a don't ask, don't tell person. So I'll be like, yeah, I want to be included. Ooh, this is fascinating. Yeah, what are y'all doing? But how much do I want people to be talking about me?
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
And so how do I have this reciprocity of consent? And that's for me the continual discussion around agreements with somebody or with people that I'm in sexual romantic relationships with is how much to disclose, and even adding the layer that we're therapists. It's like, how much do I want people to know about me, and how do I build trust while also being like, I don't own another person, so they can talk about, and it's a nuance, and maybe that'll be, I'm going to say this would be a really good topic for one of our group sessions because I think there's so much nuance to it because we're like all Brene Brown style vulnerability and
Right.
tell your story. But
Well, and
like,
the thing we have to watch out for too is, and we've said it before, and there's not enough time, I don't think, in this episode to go into detail, but triangulation is this thing that happens in systems, and what
yes.
that can look like, again, regardless of your relationship structure, is when there's a conflict between two people. Triangulation is when those two people, instead of resolving it together, they go find someone else to
Yes.
pull them
Yep.
in. Maybe a therapist. I'm often on that side of it where I'm like, I see what you're doing here. And that is something, arguably because I was, trained as a therapist. So I was looking out for these dynamics, but I noticed that right away in non-monogamy. I had a serious girlfriend. I was still with my ex-husband. And I noticed right away when there was this impulse to go vent to my girlfriend. And I caught it and went,
Oh, yeah.
no, that's not okay. Number one, it's not her, like the time spent with her. It's not her job to be my quasi therapist for relationship stuff. Number two, that creates a lot of complications in the whole relationship structure. And that's just not an appropriate use of my partnerships that way. And so that might not be the same as when people are thinking about, I think when we say how much information do you want to disclose or let people, we're like, I think my mind goes to sex usually. Like, I don't really want to hear about the kind of sex you're having, but also,
but also
think about the containers and boundaries around what we share in terms of what are our struggles with our current partners. And do we really want to be processing them with our other partners?
But then this even gets more complicated because then I'm hearing all these stories about people going on each other's Instagrams and on the stories and checking each other out and then being like, oh, I saw this post and I saw this. And it's like, so much complication. So I think these are good things to continue to talk about. I do like the topic of triangulation. And I think, so for this episode, we obviously have plenty more to talk about with ethical non-monogamy.
These are broad strokes of non-monogamy.
Yes. But I think that we cleared up. We can say that this was the first part. We'll dive into non-monogamy more. But for this episode, we really got a couple definitions down. We got some variations of agreements and
definitely recommend Polysecure. And also, if you are a podcast person, which I'm hoping you are because you are listening to a podcast right now, please check out Multi-Amory. It's a great podcast. It's been going on for years, and that was a huge resource and continues to be one for me. They have so much experience, and they also have guests on the show, a whole slew of people. So check it out.
Yeah. So what's working is people reading these books, having these continuing conversations around agreements. And the thing that you really said was the why. So starting off with what's your why? And that's great.
And
so
if you're monogamous, what's your why for that?
Totally why. Yes.
What's your why?
It's not a default. We don't want to be compulsory monogamy, compulsory heterosexuality. We're aware. Let's deconstruct why we're making the choices that we are. So on that note, making choices and what's working well, what's your queer joy for this week?
Queer joy. So the one that is coming to mind right now is I got to reconnect with a friend yesterday on Zoom or FaceTime. And it's somebody that I was very close with and have been very close with. And this last year, I referenced them earlier, that they had a really difficult year with a lot of loss and a lot of trauma. And I went through my own stuff. This person was how do I say this? So my ex's best friend, his wife. We were couples together and it's a queer joy for me because I was introduced to her through, my ex and his friend, and really thought we were going to raise families together right alongside each other. We were very much family friends. And so the fact that we still share a connection and a bond, even though I'm no longer married, that means so much to me because so many relationships do fall away, and did fall away.
For sure.
A lot, and I'm a person who was working 4 jobs most of my marriage. So I didn't have a lot of time to build a lot of relationships outside of the marriage. So it just was really wonderful to reconnect and to know that we're still there. It's just one of those people that could spend 6 months not talking and then we have a conversation and it's you're still
oh, that's cute. That's sweet. Well, I had some multiple queer joys. I would say, I think the one that's coming to mind right now, my biggest queer joy for now was I was out hanging out. I guess you'd call it a date. And I was with this person and we went to this restaurant and it was this outside area and the owner. So the person I was hanging out with had met the owner from a previous thing. There's these interconnections so-and-so, no so-and-so, again, super queer. And we're sitting there and the owner is like chatting away. And all of a sudden we're sitting and we're all like in our 40s reminiscing and talking about Portland from the 90s and 2000s. And it was like, but not just about Portland, but freaking Burnside and how we used to go to like Silverado. And before the strip got cleaned up and was like all Harvey Milk, it was like just totally boxes and all the old, like people who are listening who are old school Portlanders will know what I'm talking about. So it was the greatest. So we're all chatting away and doing the thing. And then the person I'm hanging out with on a date, they're like, we're like sitting there, we're like, is this person, we're trying to figure out if this person's queer or not.
It's a
So
fun
then-
game.
a fun game. So and they're even trying to like ask, like did a good job of trying to ask questions. But the best part was she comes back later and she's like, "Can I be your friend?" She's like, "I want to be friends with y'all." And so like I gave her my phone and she put her phone and totally like it was just so lovely. Like what a beautiful moment. Like I have this little like it's so cute. It was so lovely.
I love it. Spontaneous connections.
Yes, yes, yes. And so I will say, I will name who the person is because she deserves our support. She has all these great plans that she wants to do. And so it's down in Kenton. I want to say Derby. I could want to say Derby on Kenton. Check it out. They have a great they have outdoor seating. Yay. And delicious food, vegan and meat. So good compromise. Well, that's it for today. Melissa, should we plug? I guess we have our workshop February 12th.
Yep, that's the first one coming up on the 12th. That is going to be about queer relationships. Then later, help me out, Keely. When is it? When is non-monogamous?
March 25th. March 25th
Cool.
is our polyamory non-monogamy workshop. So
And that'll be a one-off workshop. Following that is when we will start the closed group. So that will start the first week of April, and it's an 8-week group.
awesome. Well, thanks you all for listening again. And I hope everyone has a queer and joyful week.
Thanks for listening to Queer Relationships, Queer Joy, a podcast by the Connective Therapy Collective. Hosted by Keely C. Helmick and Melissa DeSeguran, with audio edited and produced by me, Cardinal Marking. Intro music is by Bad Snacks. Outro music by Victoria Instrumental. If this episode made you smile or think, tell us about it. If you hated it, tell us about that. Review us on iTunes or Spotify. Yes, you can review on Spotify now. Or send us an email at info@connectivetherapycollective.com. For information on our workshops and for more queer joy, visit our website at connectivetherapycollective.com. Love ya. Bye.